Sam Cooks has mental health difficulties. On the occasion she's been in court, charged with theft and fraud, part of her defence is that she's being treated by psychologists. But there is a side to some mental health problems, and that is that sometimes they can give you certain skills. I don't say this lightly, but I do feel uniquely qualified to say it. Because as a comedian and filmmaker, I've had my own mental health troubles. Some years ago, I was given a particular diagnosis to explain my mental processes. These processes have made life very difficult at times, but they also make me more sensitive to people's emotions. And when I'm being creative, they make my work more astute and intuitive. In Sam's case, what skills do her mental illness give her? Well, perhaps one is storytelling. I'm Justine Stafford. From RTE Documentary on One, this is The Real Carrie Jade. Episode 5. I'm a victim. Sam has spent her whole life making up stories in her head and telling them to people. And she is superb at it. Think of one thing that everyone says to describe how they felt after they realised they'd been lied to. But she was so believable. And she was so believable because not only does she make up mad stories and add all sorts of things, little details, she has this peachy, unimpeachable Mary Poppins act.
Well, feed me to an alligator with a tinfoil hat.
But most of all, she acts like she believes the stories too. Like a good writer, she inhabits her stories. And that's where she went next. Writing. Here's how it unfolded. At the end of episode 4, it was May 2019, and Carrie had just been convicted in the court in Cork of stealing while posing as a psychologist. She was given a 4-month prison sentence, suspended if she showed good behaviour. She turned up then, the following year, 2020, west of Cork in Carrigsaveen, County Kerry.
Oh, we're going to have such a mild winter this year. Oh, come on, I'm just the eternal optimist.
Gone was the au pair persona. She was no longer a psychologist and child therapist. She had ditched Lucy Fitzwilliam, Lucy Fitzpatrick and Rebecca Fitzgerald. Now, introducing...
I'm Carrie Jade Williams.
Carrie Jade Williams. Writer. And a really good one too.
I regularly trespass, in secret and not I.
This is an essay she wrote in 2020.
Daydreamer would be the polite term people use when they mean...
It's entitled, My Brain is in a War It Will Lose, and it was about living with a disability. We voiced up her words.
My brain is in a war it will lose.
Sam said that she couldn't physically write, so she wrote the essay using what's called assistive technology.
Start voice controls.
And in the essay, she includes the computer commands she needed to use to write it.
I regularly trespass.
Full stop. Capital.
In secret and not I.
Apostrophe.
Not literally breaking in anywhere.
Comma.
But my mind wanders.
Full stop. Capital.
Daydreamer.
Comma.
Would be the polite term people use when they mean I.
Apostrophe.
Am now seriously forgetful.
Full stop. New paragraph.
I readjust the headset, make sure the microphone is right in front of my mouth, and talk the computer to life because my words literally have power. Open document, I say, and the screen obeys, presenting a document that records my words in text.
This is a woman who is now completely living the life of a patient who's gradually being disabled by an illness that will ultimately kill her. And she brings the reader right into this imaginary world.
As so frequently happens in M&S, I'm stood between two women in the queue. Shopping basket lady, who I bet owns a Labradoodle. She looks like the type. Not that I think there's anything wrong with Labradoodles or Labradoodle owners, but with every inch of my temporal lobe gobbled up by this disease comes a darker sense of humour that sometimes only I understand.
And the essay finishes up
Once completed, as I hold the page, I can't help but feel betrayed. When my work is finished, edited and polished, although it ends up digestible for the world, it somehow does so by making my experience less.
End voice controls.
Sam submitted that story as Carrie Jade Williams to a leading short story competition in the UK. It's run by the Financial Times newspaper and Bodley Head Publishers. And she won. The prize was £1,000. But for Sam, the real prize was a whole lot more. It was fame. There's an important technique that con artists use, and that is, to get into people's lives, you need to be introduced. You get to be verified by association. So Sam got the au pair jobs because she advertised herself on well-known au pair sites. She got child therapy work by being introduced by other therapists or good friends. But when Sam won the Financial Times Short Story Award, that was the best introduction of all. It gave her a stamp of approval. She was now on the world stage. The Financial Times is such a prestigious publication that media people let their guards down and booked her on their shows.
And it was a pretty dark time in my life.
This is her nearby station in Ireland, Radio Kerry.
Learning to live with my illness and disability.
From local to national.
She wasn't expected to live past the age of 40, and she's now making...
This is the Irish National Talk Station, News Talk 106 FM.
Story. Carrie, thank you for joining us. Would you mind telling us just a little bit, first of all, about...
To international. This is the well-known podcast produced from the UK.
It's The Guilty Feminist with me, Deborah Francis-White, guest co-host Jessica Foster-Q, and our very special guests, Bonnie Thomas and Carrie Jade Williams, talking about being...
In all her public performances as Carrie Jade Williams, Sam's story was that she was a young woman with an illness that was disabling her and would eventually kill her. But she wasn't going to lie down and die without putting up a fight. Not only for herself, but for disabled people everywhere. And that was the story she told our producer Ronan when he interviewed her back in 2021.
I get frustrated at the world because often there's things that I can do and then I face some ridiculous accessibility barrier. And that does annoy me. You know, most accessibility barriers can be removed for less than €40 in Ireland.
Carrie Jade gives us really clear examples of how she's trying to change things for disabled people like her. Like approaching a transport company, who, for example, she says, doesn't facilitate talk-to-text technology for disabled people who are trying to make a booking but have difficulty typing.
The situation, they could change that. It's probably 6 lines of code on their website, which I've offered to do free of charge. And I've emailed them every Thursday for over a year because I'm like, we're in 2021, we can do better.
The other thing she didn't tell us she was doing in 2021 was that she was making life miserable for 2 women in her area. One who had lost a daughter to suicide and one who'd rented a flat to her. When Sam moved to Cahersiveen, she told us how well she was getting on with her landlady.
The landlady, she's just really kind. You know, put me in touch with a few other people locally.
And that was true.
I thought, my God, if I could have 3 more tenants like this, I'd be fine.
This is the Cahersiveen landlady.
She was fantastic. She was going to do this and she was writing a book and she was going to do that. And she was a health and safety officer when COVID hit and, she was brilliant.
But then things changed and Sam began complaining about her neighbours, saying they were noisy.
It was relentless, her continuous complaining. And then I started getting phone calls in the middle of the night from her. And on St. Stephen's morning, she rang and she was complaining like mad.
The landlady couldn't prove anything, but because Sam was so believable, she told the other tenants in the building that they'd have to leave.
On a foot of her complaints because I thought she was telling the truth.
Then, out of the blue, Sam said she was leaving. The landlady told her that she needed to give a month's notice and she'd lose her deposit if she left sooner. But a few days later, the landlady called by the apartment building and one of the neighbours told her that Sam had already packed up and left. So, the landlady let herself into the apartment Sam had been renting and straight away knew that when she thought Sam was the ideal tenant, she'd been taken for a fool.
My beautiful apartment. It was wrecked. And I mean wrecked. The filth, the dirt. She had turned off the fridge. Now, I don't know when she turned it off, but the water from the freezer was out around the floor and everything inside and it had defrosted. The cooker was just unsalvageable. It was a disgrace. Not been cleaned. The place was a mess. She had made holes all over the walls, hanging up things. There was bunting, there was old bits and pieces of rubbish hanging around the place. And then in the bedroom, there was brand new curtains put in there, blackout curtains. And she had cut them. And she had put a kind of a netty thing underneath. It was like she wanted half light and half dark. But she cut the brand new curtains that I paid €120 for in Harry Corrie's. Right? So all this stuff, I was absolutely fuming, could make no contact with her, nothing.
But Sam made contact with the landlady through the Residential Tenancies Board. This is the public body in Ireland who govern rental properties and who also resolve rental disputes. They told her that Sam had taken out an official complaint with them, saying that the landlady had withheld her deposit with no grounds to do so. Her landlady couldn't believe it.
Oh, brazen. Brazen, brazen, brazen.
The landlady was given the choice to go to court or participate in mediation. She chose mediation. After all the damage Sam had done to her apartment, and leaving at such short notice, she was determined Sam was not going to get a penny from her.
I was giving her nothing. Absolutely nothing. Because it cost me money, like to get the place right again.
But mediation is all about give and take. So the landlady was asked what she'd be prepared to concede, to kind of meet Sam halfway.
I said, no. I said, I'm not. I said, I gave another tenant notice to quit, I said, because of complaints she made. I said, I believed her.
The mediator went back and forth between Sam and the landlady.
I understand why you're believing her. I said, she's very, very convincing. But I said, I'm the one that's telling you the other side of the story.
The landlady said Sam dug her heels in.
It went on and on. I'd say I was about an hour and a half, if not the 2 hours on the phone. And she wore me down. She actually wore me down. And I wound up paying €400 to her. And she laughing at us.
While this wasn't a huge amount of money, it did have a huge impact on the landlady. Both the betrayal of trust and the stress of dealing with Sam convinced her to leave the rental business, which she did. After Sam abruptly upped and left the flat in Cahersiveen, she simply moved to the other side of County Kerry, to the picturesque tourist town of Kenmare, to start afresh. The reason Sam chose Kenmare was because she already knew someone in the town, a woman who now regrets letting Sam into her life.
She's going into people's homes and totally infiltrating their lives, unbeknownst to them while she's in their home.
When Sam met this woman, she was at a very low point in her life. Her mother had died and she was estranged from her daughter. Sam did what she always does. She latched onto the woman and through her was introduced to her friends.
She was a highly charismatic person, and in addition to that, she also knew just about enough about whatever topic you happened to be discussing to be just about believable. There was also, for example, a time when she turned up to a coffee morning in my house in Kenmare, and she met about 6 women she'd never met before, and she was like the queen bee of the whole coffee morning, entertaining everybody. It was literally like an Oscar award-winning performance.
Tragically, in the autumn of 2021, this woman's adult daughter died by suicide, which Sam turned into an opportunity.
When my daughter died, she was supposedly in LA and she appeared on my doorstep. I think it was either the day after she died or the day after that, and came with her bags and stayed with me pretty much the whole time while we were arranging the funeral.
Sam had never met this woman's daughter, but was now presenting herself as a close friend.
Her role at the funeral, she was like chief mourner. You know, she was outside the funeral home telling people what kind of coffin to expect, because a lot of my daughter's friends had come over from Wales and wouldn't have known to expect an open coffin.
Words not my own. I was asked to read them on behalf of Jimmy.
And then she read a poem at the pulpit.
Stretched out across my hearthrug, her crayons in her hand, creating masterpieces, her career already planned.
Sometimes in the immediate aftermath of a suicide, the wider circle of people around the person who has died, sometimes they, and strangers, can react in odd ways as they search for answers, particularly now in the online world. After the death of her daughter, some people posted false and hurtful comments about the woman.
She kept ringing me saying all these people were following her on Instagram, or that people were texting her, or people were ringing her.
Not only was Sam in the middle of the online discussion about this young woman's death, but she was also relaying all of these cruel comments back to the grieving mother.
And it got to the point where I said to her, and I had said it to her several times, stop being in contact with these people. You don't know them, it's not appropriate, and never mind that, but you've never actually met my daughter. And she still kept doing it, and then I would take a break for a couple of weeks, and then she'd be back in touch.
Throughout all of this time, Sam, as Carrie Jade Williams, continued to write. She was now giving talks, lectures, writing classes, and even offering writing mentorships. She had now fully assumed the life of a writer and author. By the end of 2021, she was telling people that a Netflix documentary about her life story was coming out. And she published an essay on talking to children about terminal illness. It was entitled,
Will there be a phone in heaven? My 6-year-old goddaughter had asked in the middle of a Zoom call.
We voiced up her words.
This question wasn't as strange as it seemed, given that 8 weeks ago, I'd had to tell my friends and family I was terminally ill. After the adults had absorbed this news, we'd all attended a group therapy session to learn how to gently introduce the idea that I was dying. Only we hadn't really planned for such smart questions from the children. Will there be a phone in heaven?
Samantha Cooks was now seemingly totally lost in the character of Carrie Jade Williams, as if a real person had morphed into a fictional character that was starting to become real itself.
In the weeks after my terminal diagnosis, I'd had a lot of advice about telling people. I'd spoken to therapists and listened to podcasts. I was especially conscious of not traumatizing my goddaughters, all under 12 years old. One of the therapists had helped me put together a plan for starting the conversation with the youngest children in my life. After speaking with their parents, I'd mailed a den building kit, and my friend had spent an hour building and filling the structure with the fairy lights and blankets I'd put in the box. With her girls snuggled next to her, she'd gently started the conversation. One day we will all go to heaven, she'd said gently. Aunt Carrie might get there before us. You know how she likes to be on time for everything.
There's some genuine skill in the writing you've just heard. The writing of Carrie Jade Williams. But as Carrie Jade Williams was not dying, was not real, and did not exist, it's all a lie. By February 2022, Carrie Jade had fallen out of favour with the woman whose daughter had died by suicide. She'd had enough. That was just before the scattering of the ashes ceremony for her daughter, Sam was supposed to attend.
I emailed her, and then I sent her a text of the email as well, saying for reasons which I didn't want to discuss, I was taking an indefinite break from our friendship.
We don't know if this bothered Sam or not, but she stayed on in Kenmare anyway. She continued to rent a 3-bedroomed, semi-detached house on the edge of town. One of her neighbours was Chloe.
For all I knew, she was just a lovely, single professional woman. I got to know her a little bit just by talking to her outside the front. When she moved first, I actually had COVID, so I spoke to her from a distance, and but she did say to me at the time, "Oh, if you need any antigen tests, I have tons of them because I run a health and safety company." So that was her first little offer of help that she gave me. Then couple of weeks later, I got chatting to her outside the front again, and I started saying about my housing situation, which is in a little bit of a Hames blah blah. And she said, oh, well, I actually have a seat on the Women's Council of Ireland, and we help women in this kind of situation. And if you come and talk to me one day, I'll go through everything with you and I can take all your details. And she started getting kind of excited. She was like, I'll be able to help you. Like, this isn't right. You shouldn't be in this situation. So I did end up going to speak to her. I went into the house, sat down for, I'd say, nearly 2 hours with her, talking about all my stuff, which she wrote down things. She was also always promising that this pack of forms would be arriving, and the forms, the starter pack was going to be arriving. And after a couple of weeks, I kind of realised, okay, maybe Carrie, which is what I knew her as, is really suffering from Huntington's disease and kind of lives half in reality and half not. She got my hopes up. She really got my hopes up that me and my kids were going to be housed properly, that she was going to get us housed by September.
But of course, lies will eventually catch up with you. And with the amount of lies that Sam was scattering around Kenmare, what was going to happen next was inevitable.
We started going, okay, something is not right. This is not right. I had already just started distancing myself, as in if I saw her outside, I'd say hello. But I wasn't going and standing around to chat to her. I was literally getting in the car and going out. But you see, she would always make herself present. If me and the other neighbour were outside, she would come and join our conversation. Very much always coming to join the conversation. She'd always be outside cleaning the windows, always cleaning the windows, always looking out the top window, always talking to my kids. She gave them bubbles, she gave them toys. She was promising them that they could have a go of her drone that she had and the 3D printer.
We're going to hear about this 3D printer in a while. Sam was pretending to use it to make equipment for disabled children. And she was taking deposits for this through a very professional looking website. But that wasn't her only money-making venture while she was living in the housing estate in Kenmare. Although she herself was renting the house she lived in, she began to sublet it and became a sort of landlady herself by putting rooms in her house up for short-term lets on Airbnb, without, of course, telling the landlord.
And I'd say probably 100 people stayed in the house over the summer. Every day it was we'd come home and there would be either 1 or 2 cars. I think maybe she was sleeping downstairs and renting the 3 rooms upstairs.
And again, here's another occasion when you have to park your logic when looking at Sam's behaviour. If you had part of your house rented out to Airbnb customers and you weren't telling your landlord, you'd keep quiet about it. Not Sam. She decided to tell everyone about it, online, in a really provocative and attention-seeking way. She put up videos about 2 Airbnb customers, a French couple, who she said had complained about her behaviour.
She made up this thing that she had a French family that stayed with her and they had a weird experience. So she put out on TikTok that they were discriminating her and made a complaint because she was disabled, and that they were threatening to sue her for a life-changing amount of money.
These guests are suing for it's a life-changing sum of money. They are basically arguing that being around me as a disabled person, which they were not prior notified for, that they are so emotionally traumatised and triggered by being forced to be around me, that they are seeking a huge amount of compensation. I'm putting up longer videos on YouTube about this.
And she started putting all these videos out on TikTok saying all this.
Just to emphasise what Chloe said earlier, this is entirely made up. There was no French couple suing Carrie Jade Williams because she's disabled. Nevertheless, the online world latched onto this fake Airbnb story and literally went mad.
What the fuck? What the fuck? I'm angry.
This is just outrageous. This woman has a terminal illness.
I have cerebral palsy. I use a wheelchair 99% of the time. I have seen people step off of the curb into oncoming traffic to avoid me. It's not fucking leprosy. Not every disability is transferable.
This is
potentially a very sick woman's life that's being ruined, and disabled people have it hard. Existing is exhausting.
It seems that these people are now suing her, and they are being backed by some kind of group with the specific aim of bringing down the disability legislation. Even if the judge threw the whole thing out and awarded her millions and millions, they'd just wait her out because she's going to die.
This lovely lady has Huntington's disease, and she opened her home up to Airbnb. And some guests came
This
into
is
our
one of the
house,
most important TikTok creators who picked up on Sam's story.
I've got quite a large account on TikTok, so I've got like nearly 100,000.
Her name is Maz.
A lot of my followers tag me in stuff that they think would be like a good cause to kind of just make a quick video about. So I had about 50 people tag me in Samantha's videos saying, oh my God, look at this woman, she needs some help. Can you make a video and try and get some awareness? And I was like, yeah, of course, jumped on it straight away. Didn't really look into it much, which I probably should have done, but I probably still would have made the video because she seemed absolutely lovely.
They are now suing her for £450,000.
And the video Maz made about Sam being hassled just because she's disabled really took off.
Stop what you're doing. You need to hear about this. This is important. And if we're not kicking off about something, we need to be kicking off about this, right? I can't believe that we have got to the point where we are having to defend somebody for just being in the same room as someone else and because they're disabled. It's a terminal illness at the end of the day. This woman has no choice. It's a disability. You have no choice over your disability.
Maz may have been asking people to support Sam, but what she didn't realise was that there was another benefit to Sam for publicising her story. And that benefit was customers. Because in the very house in Kenmare, where Sam was claiming to be discriminated against for being disabled, she was also ripping off families of disabled children. Again, targeting the vulnerable, like this young mother who watched Maz's video.
So you kind of felt very sorry for her because it's like, I'm dying, and she just drew you in.
She lives in the English Midlands. Her name is Chrissy.
And I remember I used to get up every day and one of the first things to do in the morning, you know how you just get on your phone and you scroll, I'd always go on and look if she posted any updates. Like, I got really invested in it, but a lot of people did. If you look on TikTok, like, so many people got drawn in. And then she started posting her like sensory items.
Sensory items are pieces of equipment for children with autism and other additional needs. And Chrissy was immediately interested because her son is autistic.
She had a video of this big rug with like lights on it, and when you step on it, it will light up. I was just like, oh wow, she's amazing.
Parents like Chrissy rely on sensory equipment to help their children cope with life.
The sensory items help him kind of like come back down to earth a little bit. So if he's going into a bit of a meltdown, feeling a bit like extra heightened anxiety, like the sensory items sometimes can like help bring him back down again and calm him. So the light table I've cost
Part of the downstairs of Chrissy's house is given over to sensory items for her son. And she showed our producer, Ronan, some of them.
So this lights up.
So that's a table, like a coffee table? But it's got lights inside it?
Yeah, so like when you turn it on, it lights up, and then like you've got like your items that you can put on it and it'll obviously like shine through them. Like a bubble tube, for example.
What is a bubble tube?
So it's like an acrylic kind of tube, and you've got water in it. It lights up all different colours and it's got like bubbles. So it's like a calming sensory piece of equipment. Like my bubble tube now is broke and it's going to cost me like 80 quid for a new one. But she claimed that it would cost her €8 to print a bubble tube.
Print, as in 3D print, in Sam's 3-bedroom semi-D in Kenmare, County Kerry.
Which is like insane and not possible. But at the time, you kind of played into everything she said because she was very believable.
So believable that Chrissy sent Sam £250 for equipment that would normally cost over £1,000. It was £250 that Chrissy, who's a single mother, could ill afford. But at that time, in the autumn of 2022, she was in crisis and reckoned she had to spend it.
At school, he would have these kind of resources available, and at the moment, he doesn't even attend school. So he is home all of the time, so we don't really go out very much because it's very hard for me on my own with him. So to have the resources at home was going to be amazing.
Not only did Sam promise equipment, but she also promised to design a sensory room for her son. Chrissy remembers the day the designs for the new room came through on her phone.
I was stood in the shopping centre with one of my friends and I said, oh, it's just come through. And she was like, oh, let's see then. Because everyone knew I was getting this. I was telling all of my friends, like, oh, we're getting this sensory room. It's going to be amazing. And we were looking at it and we were like, wow, that's so good. But my friend was like, do you not think it's a bit too good to be true? And I went, no. I was like, she's so lovely. Like, it's not too good to be true. Like, I've seen her items on her TikTok. She's really, really nice. And I said, she's dying. And it's one of her dying wishes to make all these people happy. And what a muppet do I look? Because literally, it was like 2 days later after I'd had the designs through that I then went on TikTok one morning and this video from Maz comes up.
I have literally been stressing about this for 2 days because I have been sent some stuff.
Maz had been messaged on TikTok about the real story and real identity of the disabled Airbnb host.
I'm just going to show you all what I've been sent. You can all make up your own minds.
Coming up, TikTok makes up its mind and bites back. And in a case of déjà vu all over again, Sam drops Carrie Jade and takes on yet another new persona. That's all in episode 6. I'm Sadie Harris.
2 leather armchairs, a leather couch, coffee table. I'd say I'm down the guts of €10,000.
If you've been affected by any of the themes in this episode, please reach out to rte.ie/helplines, where you'll find contacts for a variety of support networks. If you've any knowledge of Samantha Cooks, aka Carrie Jade Williams, Sadie Harris, Lucy Fitzwilliam or Rebecca Fitzgerald, please contact us immediately and in confidence by email to documentaries@rte.ie or on any of the RTE Documentary on One social media platforms. The Real Carrie Jade is narrated by myself, Justine Stafford. Music is composed by Fergal O'Connor and performed by Fergal and Tony O'Flaherty. The sound engineer is Ruth Kennington. The series is produced by Ronan Kelly and Liam O'Brien, with the team from RTE Documentary on One.